Hey, and welcome to another episode of Catching Up with Chris, Jake, and Sam. I'm Jake. Jake. Jesus.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Sam, and I'm stuck in the middle of a blizzard, which is why my voice might sound a little weird.
Yeah, we have Sam hooked up via telephone in the sound booth today, so
That's right.
hopefully you guys can all hear him just fine.
Sound booth being my Toyota Corolla stuck on whatever fucking road this is.
Yeah.
We are very devoted to our fan base to bring you another episode of Catching Up, so
yeah,
it's going to be a little fun to do it in a little kind of weird new way.
Everyone tweet Sam and tell him that it's dangerous to be talking on his phone while driving.
Yeah, don't do this at home, kids. So, how was everybody's Valentine's Day weekend? Chris, you volunteered at a con, right?
Yeah, I was at Katsucon in the National Harbor in Maryland this weekend. So I spent my lovely Valentine's Day hanging out in Artist Alley because I was volunteering, and I actually got to meet some pretty cool kids. They're going to start listening to the podcast. Hopefully,
sweet.
At some point we can kind of get them on, talk to them about being independent artists, what selling stuff is like, and things of that nature. And I worked enough hours that I was given a free hotel room at the Gaylord. And thank you.
Very well.
It was
Very
pretty
good job,
fancy,
Chris. Good job.
Pretty fancy. And also somehow managed to trick them into thinking that I was such a cool guy that they gave me Volunteer of the Year. Yay!
Yay! Good job!
Yeah. It was pretty.
Now, what kind of now for those who aren't in the area, what is Katsucon's like mainly anime, right?
Yeah, it's more or less completely anime. Artist Alley, of course, is going to be filled with people selling all kinds of junk, but the focus of Katsucon itself is anime, which funny that I would go to an anime convention because I'm I guess somewhat well known to be not very into anime, but I do have an appreciation for a lot of the stuff that I have watched. And like there's a lot of crossover with fans. I can still talk about the things that I love. There was lots of people that liked Back to the Future and Doctor Who. So I was still able to make friends and have conversation.
Sure. Okay, cool. Yeah. Jake, you do anything interesting?
No, I mean, I had just kind of had the work schedule, but I mean, something I know we all did, and we can all talk about, because I think it was Valentine's Day. Sam and I saw this, and I know Chris saw it as well.
Yeah.
We saw Kingsman,
Yeah.
Secret Service.
Yeah, imaginary friend Josh was my Valentine's date to see Kingsman. We went to the new and improved, or I guess not new, but the improved Centerville multiplex with their big squishy seats that were pretty much the exact same seats that I was gushing about at the new Springfield Mall Theater when I went to see The Wedding Ringer, and so nice. And the movie was great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
For me, it's the first great movie of 2015.
Yeah, no, I definitely would stamp my name on that as well. And as Sam and I were kind of talking when the movie was over, Sam pointed out, this is the beginning of hopefully a great year for the resurgence of the spy movies.
Yeah. Oh, the watching that movie. Oddly enough, I know a lot of people probably aren't going to agree with me on this one, but watching that movie made me really want to watch the Avengers movie, not the Marvel Avengers movie, but the Uma Thurman, Ralph Fiennes Avengers movie, because it also getting me excited for the new Bond, of course, but like having like the gentleman spy kind of thing. Like I was like, man, now I want to watch a whole slew of them, including the Avengers.
Well, I mean, the big thing outside of of course, we've got Spectre, which is the latest Bond film. At the end of the year, we've got the Jason. It's Matt Damon coming back as Jason Bourne soon. We've got a new Mission Impossible movie at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And we've got The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which, for me, almost feels like a companion piece to this film.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was perfect that they showed the trailer before the movie because it kind of just set up for this kind of, even though Kingsman's not a period piece, but this very kind of stylized gentleman spy movie that I hope comes back in a big bad way because they're just so much fun. And the thing about Kingsman that's great is that it's a very self-aware movie. It knows the genre that it's in.
Even pokes fun of it directly.
Oh yeah, yeah, and there's almost some fourth wall moments there where it's very it knows what it's doing, and it's also one of those movies where I had just actually finished the book before we recorded the podcast. I had read about half of it before seeing the actual movie, and it's one where it's with most Mark Miller books, or he's the guy who wrote the book with help from Matthew Vaughn, the director. Very loosely based. But, he has such a great collaboration, Mark Miller does, with Matthew Vaughn, the director, that there's just kind of like they just get each other. And it works so well for the first Kick-Ass, where it has very similar elements to the first book, but of course the movie takes some liberties in a great way. And I've never been a stickler for it has to follow the book the exact way. That's no fun. But as long as, if it adapts it and kind of has the same kind of core thing going on, it's entertaining. And Kingsman was no different. I mean, there's very little in terms of a lot of the characters don't translate from the book to the movie, and they change names and genders and races or whatever. But the core plot is there, and the idea of this gentleman spy and being a good person. It's funny because Mark Miller gets a lot of crap, or gets a lot of publicity for being this very visceral, violent, dark writer with a lot of his books he does, especially Kick-Ass and Nemesis, some of the examples, and Wanted, of course. Although Wanted's a movie where I would say the adaptation and changes didn't work for the movie.
Yeah. The loom.
Yeah, that was one for me that didn't work well. But this is one that, I mean, this might be my favorite Mark Miller Matthew Vaughn collaboration in terms of a movie. I mean, it's so much fun. It's so over the top violent, but again, it has a heart too. I mean, Mark Miller doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion, as being a writer who can really write some really sweet, genuine, and heartfelt moments in the books. And again, it translates really well to the screen with the two leads. And Colin Firth, I mean, it's funny, you never think of Colin Firth as being this badass, but you always think of him as like a gentleman actor, and it just translates so well. And supposedly he was a guy, they were saying, they were kind of guesstimating like 85% of his own stunts in the movie, and he was totally game to do everything he could to make it look realistic.
He did a great job too.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah. The funny thing, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think the cool thing is, so Matthew Vaughn produced a lot of Guy Ritchie's earlier films, like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch, and of course Guy Ritchie is directing The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yeah.
Matthew Vaughn's last name comes from Robert Vaughn, the guy that played the original Man from U.N.C.L.E. on TV.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's kind of wild.
I always thought that was so fucking wild.
Yeah. Yep. What's funny, you guys keep talking about the man who from U.N.C.L.E. Oddly enough, when I saw Kingsman, it didn't have any trailers. Like, it just jumped right into the movie.
Oh, really?
I think. Yeah, I think. I think it was because it was the first showing. I think maybe they hadn't like attached the trailers yet, or however it works with digital now. Like if it had been like a film movie, I know exactly like what was going on in the booth. But yeah, there was no trailers. It jumped right into it. So I had to watch the Man from U.N.C.L.E. Trailer online on YouTube. It looks so good.
Yeah,
I this is something that like I didn't even know it existed until a month ago.
Yeah, well, the trailer.
I didn't even know about I didn't know about the TV show like at all. And like looking at it, I'm like watching the trailer. I'm like, oh man, now I want to go like watch this TV. Hopefully like it's portraying like the same. Like it's a good adaptation of the show, so like I can hop on to the TV show and watch it and be like, oh, and get psyched for it because like the movie comes out in like a month or two.
Yeah, I mean, my father was a fan of the show. We've got the original 1966 board game at the house.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
I'm sure is worth a pretty penny now.
Oh yeah, hang on to that, man.
Yeah, especially now with the movie coming out.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was the Man from U.N.C.L.E. was very much kind of a cash-in on the Bond mania that was going on in the 60s.
Right.
To the point where the TV creator brought in Ian Fleming as a creative consultant, and the producers of the Bond films forced them to remove his credit from the episodes because they didn't want to distract from the Bond film.
Right.
And so you see a lot of those familiar elements, like Napoleon Solo is basically a more gentlemanly. Well, Bond is a gentleman, but he's not as violent as Bond gets.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's also funny too, because you get you get Cavill, who's a Brit playing an American, and you get Armie Hammer, who's an American playing a Russian, and It's funny too, because in a weird way, this is the first time Batman and Superman have teamed up in a movie, even before Cavill and Affleck, because infamously or famously, or however you want to put it, Armie Hammer was cast as Batman in like 2006 for the George Miller Justice League movie they were going to make.
Yeah, Justice League Mortal that got canceled back in 2008 during the writers' strike.
Yeah. So it's cool. I mean, it's just I think we're all big fans of Cavill, and it's nice to see Armie Hammer
bounce back,
because the Lone Ranger was just a mess, and it
wasn't his fault.
No, it wasn't. But I mean, people are with associating actors to movies, and so it's nice to see him get another shot at it. And I think he's a good he's a solid actor. I mean, everyone thinks that there were two of them in the Social Network, but that's just him playing both roles. So it's a movie that I had heard about it for a while. I know Tom Cruise was attached at one point. All kinds of different actors were attached. And I think even Cavill had tried out for the Russia, the KGB, or the Soviet part. But when Tom Cruise dropped out, it was Henry Cavill's role to take. Yeah. And so it's a movie that I had heard about in the back here and there, being a fan of Cavill's. But man, that trailer, it looks like a lot of fun, and
it looks like Guy Ritchie up to his best
those
tricks.
Old ways,
like as soon as I saw like some of the very stylized camera movements and stuff like that, I was like, oh, I recognize this, and then like as soon as I was about to say Guy Ritchie, his credit comes up, and I'm like, I'm in. Yeah. Like this just has so many like elements that I'm already excited about. Like Guy Ritchie being the being Guy Ritchie directing it versus someone like imitating Guy Ritchie's style. I'm even more excited.
Yeah, I mean, and then both him and Matthew Vaughn have that very flashy visual style that I'm really looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it works so well with like that period. Like it looks very 60s. If you try, throw in the right color scheme, and boom, you got it. So.
Yeah, I'm sold. But another genre I think that this year is going to be good for is horror. Because last week we talked about the Poltergeist remake, and we've got Crimson Peak, and we've got the third Insidious film. But yeah, you guys saw the Crimson Peak trailer, right?
Yeah, I also looked that up. I was a little hesitant about it at first, just because like the first almost 2/3 of the trailer is just like almost like a Pride and Prejudice, kind of like looking period piece.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, what like it kind of has like a scary narration going on right now. Like I don't know what they're going for, and then like it starts showing like the very Guillermo del Toro like kind of creepy monster things, like kind of starting to crawl around. Like you see an arm here, an eyeball here or whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm getting a bit more excited, Again, like I'm not crazy about like Elizabethan period pieces, but the fact that it's like a Guillermo del Toro, like horror being horror, like I'm like, okay, I'm definitely going to check this out,
Yeah. I feel like he hasn't done straight up horror for a while.
Yeah, like he kind of like started inching at it while he was with The Strain, but that wasn't. Yeah. But I still feel like that wasn't like a 100% his project. It's based on a book that he wrote, or a book series, I guess, that he wrote. But like, I feel like he was kind of like. Almost like just kind of like producing it, like giving the okay at it, not necessarily having like a huge foot in the or a hand on the project per se.
Yeah, you look at the number of projects this guy's doing; he's too busy to be show running a series.
Exactly. Although Doug Jones was in it.
Doug Jones.
He's been he's been sitting on Crimson Peak in some form since Pan's Labyrinth. That was the first script he wrote after Pan's Labyrinth.
And true to Guillermo del Toro's style, there were a couple monsters that looked just like the guys in Pan's Labyrinth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which
I'm looking forward
to it.
Yeah,
it's got fan favorite Tom Hiddleston. It's got Jessica Chastain.
Mm-hmm. And then the Polish actress Mia
Mia Wasikowski
Yeah.
from the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, I've always liked her a lot. She's got this kind of innocent charm thing that works really well. And she was in that movie The Kids Are All Right, where I thought she was really fantastic in. She plays a character
who's also in Lawless, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Yeah. So she's an actress
Shia LaBeouf's love interest.
Yeah, an actress I like. But and then also, I don't know about you guys, but a trailer that we saw, and again, obviously Chris didn't see the trailer before Kingsman because there weren't any, but I've enjoyed the Insidious series, and they showed the new trailer for Insidious. And I know if Chris, if you haven't seen it yet, I apologize, but I don't know if you were a fan. Are you a fan of the Insidious stuff?
I saw the first one and I enjoyed it, and then like the second one kind of came and went, and I never got a chance to see it. I guess it's out on video now.
It's on Netflix.
So I can check it out on Netflix.
Yeah.
But yeah, just because like it I feel like it popped in to theaters and then was gone before I even had a chance to see it.
Yeah, it seemed to come and go really quick. It's also the only movie I've ever left in the middle of, and it's because I went with our friend Corey and Ethan. We went to go see the movie. Really psyched because I really thought the first one was really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool take.
I love Patrick Wilson. Yeah. Everyone knows this. I love Patrick Wilson.
It was nice seeing Darth Maul back in a movie.
Yeah, right. And I thought it was cool. And so we went to go see the second one, and to our mistake, we went at like 8 o'clock on a Friday opening night. And we get in, and it was like Lord of the Flies. There were just like teenagers everywhere, just screaming, and they were taking selfies during the movie. And like there were kids in front of us who were like pretending to be scared to make their friends laugh when there wasn't scary things happening. And then when a scare would happen, it was so loud, like kids were screaming. And I remember I just was like, I've never been in a movie like this. Like, this isn't fun. This is just, annoying. I'm like such an old man watching movies now. So we got up and left.
The opening scene of Scream 2.
Yeah. We got up and left, and I remember there was a security guard outside, and he's like, before he even said a word, he's like, just go to the front. We'll give you a refund. He's like, I've had so many people leave the theater already. He's like, it's insane. But it was one we caught it on Netflix, and it was pretty solid. But the third one, I don't know. I think the trailer looks pretty cool. It's has nothing to do with the Patrick Wilson family. Seems like a prequel.
Yeah, it looks like a prequel.
But is the second one just more
Patrick Wilson? Yeah,
okay, cool.
Because if you've seen the first one, you realize all is not well with Patrick Wilson at the end of that movie.
Right.
And 2 deals with it in a heavy way. 2 I thought was actually scarier than 1. And that was me watching it on a TV, in just in a controlled room with lights on. Without really anyone else around screaming, but I
mean, people that know me know that like my favorite horror series, or at least like slasher, is the Freddy Krueger series, and I really liked how in the movie Insidious they kind of went into like a dream realm, where things are very surreal and stuff like that. So I was like, this is pretty cool. I loved the look of it, and it was kind of genuinely scary.
Yeah.
There
were some moments that were cool, and it just. Like you're saying, the Darth Maul looking guy. Like, there's that great shot when they cut back to Patrick Wilson, and he's just right behind his face.
Yeah, I remember. Even though that was in the trailer, it still made me jump.
It's that's such a cool little moment. But Sam, what did you? I don't know. Are you a fan of the Insidious stuff, or?
I mean, I've only seen the first film, and I like it. I like films that are more atmosphere. I think I've talked about it before.
Yeah.
Like Nightmare on Elm Street versus Friday the 13th,
right,
and that sort of thing. We've talked about Five Nights at Freddy's, which has a third part coming out soon.
Yeah,
and I think, a lot of it certainly your death and game over does hinge on a jump scare. But I think a lot of the things that make jump scares so effective is there's a lot of ambience going on at the same time as well.
Yeah,
a lot of noise and just seeing them coming.
Yeah.
Speaking of Five Nights at Freddy's, real quick, I remember. I think I was talking with you, Sam. If not, then I'm sure you'll agree with me about saying this. Like, I'm really impressed with the Five Nights at Freddy's series. Even though they are relatively simple games, like they're being churned out really quickly, but they're still like good quality. They're not half-assed games.
These are indie games too.
Yeah, and it's this ridiculous contrast because like I have a lot of friends who are big gamers, and like all I heard about like Destiny and a couple other games that have come out recently, they're huge budget games that feel like they're only half done.
Rushed.
And there's a huge lack of storyline or like character in general to them. There's no heart in them. And then you have this game that's basically done by one guy, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure he has people that he works with him, but more or less it's him making this game, and it looks good, and it's well done, and it's starting to grow this amazing lure behind it that, like, it's essentially like what would have been like 10 years ago, like a Flash game becoming better than, Halo.
Yeah. Admittedly, it's only a little, like, it could be a Flash game almost, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's part of the charm.
Yeah. It's very minimalistic, but it's not lacking. Like, it's got the perfect for what it's going for the atmosphere. The fact that you can't really move, like, adds to it. The fact that basically all you're doing is shifting the camera around, that makes it even more terrifying, almost, I think.
The rumor is for Five Nights at Freddy's 3, it's not so much survival, it is, but it's escape.
Yeah. I had heard one rumor somewhere that said that it's that it's like actually like you're playing like the security guard before the one that you were in Five Nights at Freddy's, and you get
that was 2.
That was 2?
2 is a prequel to 1.
Is it? I thought that was.
Ooh, they Temple of Doom it. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I haven't played them. I've just kind of looked at them and enjoyed watching other people.
I haven't played 2 yet, actually.
Yeah.
But I
John
remember
has.
one. I'm terrible. I'm terrible at the game. I've never beaten a level. I'm so terrible. But it's fun. I mean, I've been playing. Speaking of kind of.
Well, I'm sorry. I kind of cut off Sam. He was saying something about.
2's a prequel, and 3. The idea is, according to what I've seen on Steam Greenlight, there's only one animatronic. You're back in the original restaurant, or the restaurant from 1. And there's a map, and this time there's a clearly marked exit on the map. So I assume you're trying to elude this one animatronic, Alien Isolation style,
right?
Trying to get it out of that restaurant.
Now he's
screaming the whole way.
Now he's flipping the script.
No, Jesus.
Actually, while I saw a couple people at Katsucon dressed up as security guards. No, security guard. Like a bunch of people with just like basically simple blue polo security shirts, and then like they would have like a Freddy Fassbender or whatever the hell it is.
Fassbender.
Yeah, Fassbender. Yeah,
Michael Fassbender.
But they have employee badges essentially. One guy actually had like the mask that you put on your head in 2. He was walking around like with the security suit, but then like a bare head. And I was like, oh, that's so creative, Yeah.
No, I've promised you guys I wouldn't play it unless I was streaming it.
Yeah.
So I haven't. At this point, I mean, it's been out for months. I've certainly seen my fair share.
Yeah.
But I haven't played it yet.
Oh, good. Because I have to be there in person. Because Sam playing Five Nights at Freddy's is my favorite thing in the world.
Just as an update, I have figured out how to get us streaming. Even though like we had John, we can do it through John, but he doesn't have a webcam. I do have a webcam. I've got it all set up. We can, once we get a night where we can all play, Five Nights, 1 and 2. Maybe we'll do a special for when 3 comes out, and we'll play all 3 of them in one night.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 3, keep your eyes peeled because he puts them out. Like, I feel like it's a matter of weeks after it makes it on Steam Greenlight, and it's been on Steam Greenlight for about 2 weeks now.
Yeah, I remember 2. He was like, okay, the beta's out, and then in a little bit the official one will be out, and then like 2 days later the official one was out, and I mean I don't follow gaming news that closely, but I feel like he kind of just snuck it out there, and then like it was basically just people going, oh my god, it's available, and then like and
there was no big announcement for the release of 2.
Yeah.
It was just there, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But no, I mean it's a great year for horror games and horror movies, I think. So I'm definitely looking forward to New Insidious and Crimson Peak and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think it's pretty clear that we're all big fans of Breaking Bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Spinoff just premiered. We've all seen it. What do you guys think of Better Call Saul?
Honestly, I was actually a little disappointed myself. It took me. I found it like kind of a struggle to keep watching it. Like it still had the very pretty kind of visual of Breaking Bad. You know, the really nice, very kind of artsy camera angles stuff. But like it was just so slowly paced and like almost like just for the sake of being slow, like not even like for real purpose. And I don't know, I liked Saul, but I liked Saul being the dirty lawyer. I don't like seeing him being like a struggling nice guy. Well, I don't want to say nice guy, but like I almost don't want an origin story for him. I just want him to be Saul. Like I don't want to see Darth Vader as a little kid, you know? I don't want to see him pod racing.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jay.
Okay. I like seeing. I thought the beginning of it, the black and white stuff, was fantastic. Because you get to see like where his life is now, and that moment of him putting on his tapes and watching his old promos and commercials he used to do, and like remembering how I guess life used to be good, but it wasn't even that good. You know what I mean? You know, if you're watching those, you know, he's still this kind of slimy scumball guy. And then the interesting thing about prequels is in the back of our mind, we know how Saul ends up. You know what I mean? So it doesn't. It's this kind of tragic thing where like he never really gets there. You know, and he, you know, early on in the first episode, you know, he's going by his real name. You know, he's not Saul Goodman yet. And there's this kind of glimmer of like not really wanting to do the right thing, but trying to make an honest living. Again, quote unquote honest living, but like as a lawyer, he hasn't become, you know, this Saul Goodman we know yet. And I'm interested to see that kind of interesting origin of where does his mindset go and the gears start turning. You see the gears really start turning when he meets the twin brothers with the skateboarding and, you know, doing the whole you know, trying to, you know, take money from people for the setting up these crashes and whatnot.
I did like that bit because that was to me that was Saul.
Yeah,
that was Saul being
well,
Saul.
Again, I because I liked it because you start to see it click with him and he's starting to put the pieces together because it's a guy, you know, he's desperate for money, he's desperate for a purpose, he's desperate for some kind of respect that he's not getting. I mean, the people he's representing in that first case is like, what the fuck is going on? Like those three kids who basically are like having sex with a dead body. You know, it's like where do you go from here? And so I really liked the first episode. That's the only one I've seen so far. You know, I like Saul as a character. I liked him in Breaking Bad as he got more disheveled as it went on. It's almost like he could see the light at the end of the tunnel, but just everything keeps going wrong for him. And but yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes, and you get to see a couple Breaking Bad characters in it, which is really interesting too. I mean, the last character you see is a big one, and it's exciting to see where that's going to go.
Yeah, it's a hell of a cliffhanger for that premiere. You know, it's like Chris was saying, it definitely has the same visual sensibilities of Breaking Bad, and it's kind of almost visually, it's like the series almost never stops because it still has that kind of nice orange glow and that Albuquerque setting and everything, that nice saturation. I think if people looking for Breaking Bad, they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, but I enjoyed it. It's interesting to see because, like we were all saying, we know how Bob Odenkirk and how awesome is Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah,
he's great.
He's fantastic.
I am glad to see him doing more stuff because I pretty much every character I've seen him play, I do enjoy like his work at it. You know.
Yeah, even his like not one-off, but even his like brief appearances on How I Met Your Mother, which is on Nick at Night, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Is it? Oh God. Whatever happened to their standards about doing classic TV?
Well, that's classic TV now. Like it's like it's kind of
Is
ridiculous.
it though? Is it?
Well, it's. I mean,
it's classic in the same sense that like the Beastie Boys is on the classic rock channel now.
we're that show premiered what, like a decade ago?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it did. And of course, I've gone on record and talked about how much I've enjoyed the first like 4 seasons of How I Met Your Mother, and certainly a bit in there's great episodes in the last 5, but no, I mean,
classic in the sense of it's old now. That's what I'll give it.
I think as soon as Nickelodeon started TV Land, they're like, cool, this is where everything pre like 1980s can go live.
Yeah, and then we'll have Nick at Night for everything else, for all the syndication that we buy.
Yeah, what are the cheap syndication deals? Awesome, let's do it. But no, I mean, I enjoyed Better Call Saul from the 1 episode I've seen so far.
Yeah.
So I'll keep you guys posted as that first season. I mean, it's already been approved for a second season.
Yeah.
I mean, full season.
Like we were saying, anything Vince touches, they're like, do it, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
And to be fair, I mean, from what I've seen, that series premiere ratings through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Is he going to be, do we know if he's going to be attached to the new X-Files stuff that's coming out soon? Since that's where he kind of got his break.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, did Vince Gilligan create the X-Files, or did he just jump on as a showrunner or head writer?
I think he was just a showrunner, writer type. Because it's Chris Carter created the X-Files.
Yeah, kind of like Matthew Weiner. Everyone, sorry, I'm almost 30.
I know. It's just, I'm always gonna laugh. I can't help it.
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm the oldest out of the 3 of us, and I was the first to chuckle. So,
but the everyone kind of cites as like, yeah, remember he used to do great things with The Sopranos, and now here he is creating Mad Men. It's like, well, he was only the showrunner or the head writer of The Sopranos for like 2 seasons. I feel like it's the same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Mad Men, that finishes, or at least the final season finishes in a couple months.
Yeah. They had that really weird, was it because of the strike or whatever? They had like a couple year gap in between seasons.
Yeah. Because it was, if I recall, was it Breaking Bad or Mad Men that launched AMC original programming?
I think it was Mad
AMC.
Men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Not AMC.
Yeah. Was it Mad Men or Breaking Bad that launched AMC?
AMC.
It was AMC.
I think AMC launched itself.
AMC, yeah.
God, Sam.
I think.
I'm sorry. I was going to say Breaking Bad, but
I don't know. I thought Mad
but
Men. Was
I could hear the argument for either and be like, okay.
I feel like it was, now that I'm actually sitting down and kind of thinking about it. Not that I have anywhere to go.
Now that I'm looking at the snow falling.
Hey, Sam, can you tell us how the snow is outside? Is it windy and how is it out there? Are the traffic conditions terrible, or what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks.
Yes.
It's just like I'm hoping this is it for the winter. Anyway, but I feel like it was Mad Men that started it. But like Jake was kind of hinting at, there was a writer's strike that kind of impeded progress.
Yeah.
And I remember it was the writer's strike that basically saved Jesse Pinkman, that saved Brian, because originally Vince Gilligan had him dying in the season 1 finale, have him being beaten to death by Tuco.
Yeah.
And then Walter White would have to have that guilt with him for the rest of the series. And then during the writer's strike, which is why the first season is the shortest season, he liked how much that he, interacted with Bryan Cranston, that they kept Aaron Paul on for the rest of the series. So some bad things came out of the writer's strike, like Quantum of Solace.
Yeah.
Which is an okay Bond film, but desperately needed, at least some script polish.
Yeah, luckily it's the shortest, but it doesn't help. It does help, but it doesn't help that it's sandwiched by like two of the best in recent memory.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think the writer's strike kind of hurt some of the clout with Mad Men? Because I feel like when Mad Men was like starting out, it was like on fire. Like nobody else, like it was just slaying every other show. And then
those first 3 seasons of Mad Men are phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the finale of season 3 is my favorite episode of the show. I mean, I'm not, to be fair, I'm not caught up, but I remember that season 3 was just it was ridiculous. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like, because they had the couple year gap in between seasons where they kept like, there'd be commercials every so often like, hey guys, in a couple years we're coming back, don't worry about it. But like, I feel like some of the clout kind of fell off the show a bit.
Part of it was budgetary too.
Yeah, that's
part
true.
of it, I'm sure part of it was writer's strike, but part of it was budgetary.
Yeah,
that's why there's such a dramatic budget shortfall in between seasons 1 and 2 of The Walking Dead. There was like Sony was threatening to shop around the 5th season of Breaking Bad because they didn't have the money for it.
No.
Like it got close. So I think that's more part of it. And I'm pretty sure that's why they split the final seasons for both Breaking Bad and Mad Men into two
parts.
Years.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, it's longer than a regular season, but shorter than a regular season at the same time if you think about it in the sense that a season a year.
Well, there's still those people out there who think that Breaking Bad had 6 seasons, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. They'd be like, no, it's just 2 parts. Like, no, it's season 5 and season 6. It's like, no,
To be
it's
fair,
2
HBO
parts.
does the same thing. I mean,
yeah. Well,
the final season of The Sopranos is technically 2 parts.
Yeah, that's a trend that sometimes working at a Blockbuster, that's a trend that got really confusing.
Yeah.
When people would like put the CDs in the wrong thing, and then like you're seeing disc 1 of season 6, but then you realize it's disc 1 of season 6 part 2. Not, it's just kind of insane. But that's something a lot of shows are doing. I mean, it's all about the mid-season finale now, with television, which I feel like is fairly a new thing. I mean, back in the day, it was when a season started, that was it. But now you have almost, it feels like these mini seasons in between with these breaks.
I personally don't mind the idea of a mid-season finale and mid-season premiere because it kind of, from a logistical standpoint, you've got to give them a good hook.
Yeah.
For that programming break for the holidays.
Yeah. Usually, or it used to just be that like your show would take 2 or 3 weeks or whatever off for the holiday season. Now they're actually like trying to get you back.
Yeah. And it makes from a narrative standpoint, it gives you a good middle act for the season. It gives you a build-off point or some sort of payoff for that entire first half. So you don't have to necessarily, pull a 24 and wait until the 24th episode for everything to come together.
Yeah.
But so I don't mind the idea of mid-season breaks. I know. Better Call Saul haven't because it's so short.
Yeah.
It's only 10 episodes for season 1 and 13 episodes for season 2, Breaking Bad style.
Mm-hmm. The only thing that ever bothered me about mid-season breaks was that it seemed with some of them, or with some of these shows, like kind of like what Jake was saying, I believe, is just like now they're almost like, oh well, now that we have a mid-season finale, we can take even longer to bring come back for the second half.
Well, yeah,
and like to the point where like some of these shows are releasing the first half of the season on DVD before the second half even starts. Whereas at that point you might as well just call it a new season and just be like, oh, it was just a really short 8 episode season or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike the idea of like mid-season finale stuff. I mean, like shows like Flash and Arrow have capitalized on those and had some phenomenal episodes because of it. Mm-hmm. I just feel like there are some shows that like you'll get all this steam going and they build up at the mid-season and then they just don't know. Like Walking Dead for me is a good example of like when the mid-season comes, it might have well been in the end of the season because they come back and they misfire with the season finales. Like it's like it's their job.
They're doing a better job on the mid-season finales than the end-season finales.
Yeah, I could certainly argue that with, in the case of seasons 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s been off the air for, 2-3 months now?
Well, that's right, because they got
Carter.
Agent Carter going on.
To plug the gap, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge kind of hiatus. And that's a network show, too.
Yeah.
It's more understandable with like a cable show, but we're talking ABC.
Yeah. Marvel, I mean, and we've talked about it before, obviously, but I just working in a comic shop, you hear it all the time, like just the gear up for the Netflix stuff is really exciting, and just the idea of like, the Daredevil series. I know so many people are like, let's hope it spins off, like a Marvel Knights thing, and that's the thing I really hope it does. I mean, I would love to see like just more street level Marvel characters, and bringing in Johnny Blaze and bringing in Frank Castle and even Mark Spector.
Yeah.
Like if that's the place to bring it in, because it's going to be like TVMA, like it's going to be a mature thing, the kind of release that it is going to be.
If they want to do it right,
yeah, especially for those guys.
And then Showtime can get Marvel Max.
Yeah.
What about now? While we're on the topic of Marvel characters, Marvel Studios, Disney just got back partial rights to Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they announced that right after we were done recording last week.
Yeah, seriously, they always announce. Like I bet as soon as we hit end on this, they're gonna release the Batman v Superman trailer.
Yeah, and we're gonna be like, well, fuck,
calling it right now. But yeah, the Spider-Man news was huge. I mean, that news was so huge that like the next day, like my dad came up to me and was like, "Spider-Man's back," and I was like, it's like it's on every news thing. It was trending everywhere. People were going nuts for it, and it was awesome to see. Yeah, and again, Sony still has. Like you were saying, like, it's not like Sony just gave up Spider-Man. It's like, back with Marvel. But the idea of, we're going to see Spidey in Cap 3. The hunt for a new Spider-Man is on, because it's not a surprise, but, I am a little bummed that Andrew Garfield's out.
Yeah.
Because I was telling Sam about this, and it's weird. Like, I always think, like, how would I feel, if I was Spider-Man and kind of get the boot. And I liked Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I know, Sam, you liked it, more than the masses as well. But it was something where, for the majority of the people who saw it, it was a pretty low way to end your career as Spider-Man, and which is a bummer, because like I said, he's my biggest problems with his Spider-Man movies were usually when Peter Parker was on screen. It almost was never when Spider-Man was on screen. And we get to see who they're going to cast as Spidey. I mean, there's a lot of Miles Morales talk in the future, what they're going to do with him, and the idea.
Yeah, but at the same time, the studio, it's kind of leaked that Sony and Disney both jointly had their eye on guys like Logan Lerman.
Oh yeah,
fine. I like Logan Lerman.
Oh yeah. I mean, they've said Peter Parker. I mean, so I mean, everyone was speculating, like, is it going to be Miles? And it's like, well, no. They said in the press statement it's going to be Peter. But the idea of like it's open to that.
And they're going to have to cast soon because.
Oh, real soon, yeah.
Civil War starts filming either next month or April at the latest.
Yeah, and I'm one all for Logan Lerman for Peter Parker. I know, kind of bringing it back to the Kingsman thing. I know Mark Miller had retweeted or tweeted about the character Eggy in Kingsman. I can't remember.
Taron Egerton.
Thank you. Yeah, that he if he could pull off an American accent, he'd be a good Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I could see that too.
I can see that.
But I think the big thing for me is cast young. Cast in the early 20s. And get him, and Logan Lerman's a babyface kind of guy, and he's in a movie called Perks of Being a Wallflower, which is like the perfect just phrase for Peter Parker.
And
in
also,
high school.
the speaking of Perks of Being a Wallflower and superheroes, what's his name that was in that is the Flash, right?
Oh yeah. Ezra Miller is playing the Flash.
Yeah, Ezra. Yeah, he was in Perks, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
he was good. But it's an exciting time that and. I don't know. Did you guys feel like we were never going to get here, or did you feel like it was just a matter of time until Spider-Man came back?
I kind of saw the tides turning. Like it seemed kind of obvious that, or like I don't know if it was leaks or like rumors were going abound that like Sony was like considering working out something, and based on the source material in the books, Civil War is going to be so much better with Spider-Man being a part of it.
Another Mark Miller book.
Yeah, so I'm not terribly surprised by it, but I am very happy that it happened in good timing. Like I was worried that Sony was going to keep trying, and then finally, like, way down the line was going to be like, fine, fuck it, have him back. We can't do anything with him.
Yeah, it was always more likely going to be Spider-Man, I feel like, than X-Men, and perhaps even Fantastic Four, because they didn't have the merchandising right.
Yeah. Fox really seems that they can, or seems to think that they can make, that they can eventually hit with Fantastic Four.
I mean, I don't want Fantastic Four to fail as a fan.
Oh yeah.
But it would be it would be nice for Marvel to get right.
Would be nice to see Johnny Storm and Peter Parker bromance.
Yeah.
But it's funny with all this stuff going on with Sony. I remember they had released an article and they're like, and the Sinister Six movie has been delayed, but still, on schedule. I'm like, get rid of the Sinister Six movie. Like, you don't need this movie anymore. Like, they're so obsessed with this idea of the Sinister Six movie. And, Amazing Spider-Man 2, when you watch it again, it is almost like this, like, let's just get geared up for this Sinister Six movie. And for me, I could give a shit about a Sinister Six movie.
Yeah. Yeah, there was talk about, like, an Aunt May movie and, like, an Aunt May prequel.
Yeah, that made no sense to me, the Aunt May one.
That's just Sony, like, how do you make a universe? I don't know. You make a movie about every character, every single character.
How do you fuck up Spider-Man?
Well, Sony did. And they were just
Uncle Ben lives.
Yeah,
that's how you fuck
calling
up
the big guns and be like, please help us because we don't know what we're doing with a character that is probably the easiest character to build a universe around. Like colorful villains, colorful side characters, a great setting in like actual place in New York City, And for some reason,
the only person who has better villains than Spider-Man's Batman.
Yeah.
And that's why the Suicide Squad is, doing well in pre-production.
Yeah,
because half of them are Batman villains.
Well, are they doing well? Because they still haven't cast Rick Flag.
Yeah,
I know the rumors now. They're saying Joel Kinnaman.
Oh, from RoboCop, yeah.
Yeah,
Robert Cop.
So I don't know. We'll see about
see
about that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they've never had any luck there. I think because Rick Flag is going to be overshadowed by, no matter who's playing it, by how they've written the Joker or how they'll position the Joker and Will Smith's Deadshot. Yeah,
I'm sure that most of the actors they're shopping around to are seeing it as a fairly thankless role. Like, well, what's the point?
Yeah, on some level though, you have to, as an actor, be like, well, it's kind of a relief, right?
Yeah, I think so.
This ensemble piece is not on my shoulders.
I think so, yeah, but I think they're also most actors have that super competitive nature and innate thing to want to be in the spotlight, and so but also
like Hall coming off of like Nightcrawler, where he's getting some of the best reviews of his career.
But then you also get that idea of like I always go back to the Magnificent Seven story where Steve McQueen's on the stagecoach and they're riding through town, and McQueen has no lines, but he wanted to steal the scene from Yul Brynner, so he just kept playing with his hat. So just to draw your attention to him, and it would piss off Yul Brynner every time he did it. But like, I don't know, maybe some actor, some young actor will relish in the idea of like, hey, I'm gonna make Rick Flag the scene stealer in this movie, a movie with Deadshot and Harley Quinn and Joker.
Yeah, you mentioned like the Magnificent Seven. For me, I always like the more ancillary characters, the ones that you don't know as much about. Like I always thought James Coburn was so cool in the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
This guy that's arguably better with a knife than he is with a gun, and he's still pretty awesome with a gun. Or you watch like The Great Escape, and I want to know more about I want to see as much as I want to see Steve McQueen jump over that final fence, I want to see James Garner make it too.
Yeah, it's funny every time I watch The Great Escape, there's always that little thing in the back of my mind where I'm like, he's gonna do it, he's gonna make it this time, he's gonna make the jump.
Like I've been watching The Great Escape since I was like 6 years old.
Oh yeah.
And there's still that part of me that's like, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
He's got it.
And
Just like when I'm watching the Sand Pebbles, I'm always like, he's going to do it. He's going to get out of the monastery alive, and then he doesn't actually get out of the monastery.
I remember the first time I saw The Great Escape because my dad, and I think probably all of our dads are, it seems to be, big into like those kind of genre films, especially Steve McQueen movies. And he had it and we were watching it. And I remember, he doesn't make the jump and he like lands in the barbed wire, and there's that scene afterwards where he's just like caught up in it and there's just like blood all over the place and he's just like struggling in it, and that just was one of the things that always like put this nightmarish thing in my head, but even though it's happening, he almost looks, because it's Steve McQueen, he almost looks cool while he's doing it, like, hey boys, like you caught me again,
Well, the thing I always thought about it is, even though he's clearly crashed the motorcycle and he's caught in this barbed wire, he's still reaching for Switzerland.
Yeah.
As the Nazis are running up.
Yeah.
Like, I can still do it. I can still make it.
Yeah, and also, I don't know, Steve McQueen, man, He's one of those. I remember we were talking about like Clint Eastwood and John Wayne, and for me, I was always like Steve McQueen more than John Wayne. Like, for me, it comes down to like I just thought Steve McQueen's just one of the coolest dudes on the planet. With like, everyone talks about Dirty Harry, and Dirty Harry is kind of the start of like the loose cannon cop genre, but everyone kind of forgets about Bullet.
Which came out like 3 years before.
Yeah, and it has Robert Vaughn in it too. Everyone kind of forgets, and again, all accolades for the car chase. That's like 9 minutes and 41 seconds of like just the best car chase you'll ever see, in my opinion, because it's what people kind of forget.
Also set in San Francisco.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he's got the holster, and like the whole idea of like.
And the score of, now that I'm drawing all these comparisons, the score of Bullet. Yeah. Layla Schifrin.
There you go.
Score. Yeah. For Dirty Harry.
Dirty Harry. This is like the best, like funkiest, bassiest score of all time. But like, it's I think. With all the car stuff going on in movies nowadays, they want to see the explosions, they want to see the crazy stunts, they want to see, people jumping into other cars and guns or whatever. And people forget, like, for me, one of the reasons Bullet has the best car chase is it's just two cars chasing each other. There's, that's what it is. And it's Steve McQueen was such a junkie for cars and all that kind of stunt work. He's doing all the stunts in it too. And it's just this. The great little bass, little whatever the car would pull up in the rearview mirror, you get another instrument adds to the score, and it's just if you haven't seen Bullet, man, that's one of the all timers.
It did break my heart a little to find that he isn't the one on a motorcycle doing the failed jump.
Yeah, I know, and I remember
all the other motorcycle stuff.
I know. I inadvertently destroyed a customer at Blockbuster, like his soul, because I remember we were talking about it years ago, and he was renting it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's so, it's just one of the greatest movies of all time. Like, I love The Great Escape. I love Steve McQueen, the Cooler King. It always just, like you were saying, it breaks my heart that he's not the guy who does the final jump. And I remember he looks at me and he goes, what do you mean? And he was like in his like 50s. And I go, he didn't do the jump in it. Like, he wanted to do the jump, but, they wouldn't let him do it. And he goes, you're telling me, because, it was because the actor or the stuntman who did it had just passed away recently.
Buddy Ebsen.
Yeah, he had passed away when I was working back at Blockbuster, and this guy was like crushed. I was so bad, but like it does. It's but then again, there's that great shot where Steve McQueen he's dressed up as a Nazi. Like there's he plays one of the Nazis chasing himself in The Great Escape.
Chasing himself on film. It's great.
Yeah, it's kind of good stuff. So yeah, if go watch a bunch of Steve McQueen movies because he's classic.
Is that your next kick, Jake?
I don't know. It's you know what? Honestly, my next kick is Colin Firth because I
So the King's Speech and Bridget Jones' Diary.
Well, the King's Speech definitely. Bridget Jones, we'll see. But the King's Speech is a movie. It's just that's a fantastic movie.
You can also do. Wasn't he one of the guys in Mamma Mia too?
He was.
Yeah,
my dad will love to rewatch that one.
Him and Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, him and poorly singing Pierce.
Oh my God! I'm so glad you mentioned Pierce Brosnan. So in Kingsman, the book, which is just called Secret Service, I guess, and they renamed it Kingsman: The Secret Service. At the end, all the celebrities are kind of put together, and it's the MI6 in the book. It's not the Kingsman. They're trying to break everyone out, and one of the guys is like, we're MI6, everyone, stay calm. Here's a gun. Do you guys know how to use these weapons? We're going to have to bust out of here. And they give a gun to one of the guys, and he goes, do you know how to use this gun, sir? And it's Pierce Brosnan. And he goes, I played James Bond's son. I've been doing this shit before you were born. And he, like, cocks the gun and walks off. It's pretty great.
I gotta read this book.
It's good. I mean, there's a lot of celebrity things in it. A lot of because it's the same basic principle of a man trying to kill 5 billion people to save the Earth in the long run, have 1 million people, and kind of like the Earth is a virus, blah blah blah, kind of stuff. So that's the basic premise still. Read the book, watch the movie, kind of bringing it back to those things. Kingsman's fantastic, but Colin Firth, man, there's something about British actors, they got something, I don't know, is it the accent, the charm, whatever it is, and Colin Firth has it, and I didn't think he was going to be bad in the movie. Don't get me wrong, but he totally won me over big time. Because when I read the book, he's drawn very menacing looking, and has kind of this kind of like
more of like a Wiz peak, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, kind of got his grit to him. But then watching the movie, Colin Firth he kicks all kinds of ass in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
That'll probably be the next kick. Who knows?
It'll make you want to blast Freebird too.
Oh God!
Without going into too much detail, it'll make you want to Last Freebird.
Yep. Whatchamacallit, Devil's Rejects has a contender now for best Freebird moment.
Oh yeah.
Although I think this beats it, but Kingsman beats it. But yeah, there's talk of a sequel. They said depending on how the movie does at the box office, and it's doing fantastic right now. They're all in line for a sequel, and Matthew Vaughn wants to come back to direct. I would love to see them kick ass one more time.
Yeah, it's what he dropped out of Days of Future Past to do.
Yeah, which I think Days of Future Past turned out just fine, and Kingsman was all the better for Matthew Vaughn going on, because like I said, he just like him and Mark Miller when it comes to adapting Mark Miller's work, they just share this kind of collective brain and they know how to do it.
Weren't they supposed to? Wasn't there talk of them adapting Nemesis as well?
Yeah, I think I think anything Mark Miller writes now, because he has such a track record with his work, it's pretty much optioned for a movie. Nemesis would be. I don't even know how the fuck they would pull that off. I mean, that for me is one of the most, and I own the book. I like the book. One of our friends, Vernon, it's like his least favorite thing on the planet. I don't know if you're familiar with the book, Chris.
No.
It's one of the most like heinous, vile books. It's basically the premise was if Batman became a supervillain. But like,
yeah, you talk about good guys going bad, Chris. What if it was a Batman level book told from the perspective of the Joker?
Oh God!
I'm excited.
I'll bring it next time, dude.
Do it.
It reads a little quick because it's only 4 issues, if I'm not mistaken. Because I always saw it as a companion piece with Superior, which is my favorite Mark Miller book, which is all about the best in a person, and being good, and kind of like a Superman story and a Shazam story, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's his own character, and then. Nemesis is kind of this book about the worst in people, and it's one that if you're gonna read either of those, read both of those as a kind of a back-to-back thing, because it shows you like Mark Miller can be so twisted with the stuff he has. The Nemesis, what happens in Nemesis, and he can be so uplifting and wonderful and Superior. But and I was thinking about this today. He attracts some of the best artists to work on his stuff. Steve McNiven is on Nemesis. David Gibbons is on Secret Service. Was it Lionel Yu is on Superior. John Romita Jr. is on Kick-Ass.
Steve McNiven's on Nemesis.
Yeah. And I think some of the it's cool because in the end of the Secret Service book, there is a photocopied handwritten letter from Dave Gibbons, and he's writing in 1987. He's writing back to a young unknown Mark Miller, because Mark Miller had sent him ideas about, I think, Shazam and Marvel Man, I think.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know, Dave Gibbons also drew a little book called
Watchmen. Yeah.
Never heard of it.
And it's and so he had written to Dave Gibbons, and Dave Gibbons wrote back this handwritten letter saying like, "Hey, I love your ideas. Unfortunately, I'm in no position to like hire you. Basically, like I can't. Like I'm just drawing the books." But I'll see you around. Keep going. Great ideas. Send this to DC. Or editorial at Marvel. Whatever. And then 25 years later, Dave Gibbons is drawing a book for Mark Miller, and Mark Miller talks about how awesome that is. Like this. Keep trying. Keep working hard, and you may get there. And it's kind of cool. And Mark Miller's been like happier than a pig in shit on Twitter if you follow him about Kingsman, because it's slaying at the box office. I mean, it's already made its money back in terms of like its budget.
Even with going up against 50 Shades of Grey.
Even going against 50 Shades of Grey. Well, I mean, I don't know how it was for you guys when you saw it. Was it sold out when you saw it, Chris?
No, luckily it was not. The theater had a good bunch of people in it, but we had seen the 8 p.m. showing on Thursday night, so I think if anyone wanted to go see like the premiere, they probably would have gone to the later show.
Yeah.
Even though technically the 8 p.m. was the first showing. So like and also just in general there weren't a lot of people there, Like I even made a joke on my Facebook that I was like, guess Josh and I are the only ones going to see 50 Shades of Grey for Valentine's Day because the parking lot's empty.
Yeah. I mean, I think the hype kind of came from the first couple showings. I remember people going like, holy shit, this is really good. This is a lot of fun. And sometimes, sometimes we miss just fun in the theaters. Yeah. And this is
one of my favorite things.
It just brings it back. It brings it back so much. I mean, Sam and I, we were going to go to a showing, and they pretty much like were close to sold out, and we went to a showing after it. And Sam picked up a Boss Darkseid pop figure. But But yeah, it's
He's got the biggest head.
his head is so big. His head is giant. I remember because he, we talked about Pops in detail, but like Sam has the Dracula one, and I remember picking up the Dracula Pop figure and putting it side by side to the Darkseid one, and it looks like a peanut head compared to Darkseid's. Darkseid's head is a dome.
Yeah,
and I like
the cool thing. Well, yeah, what I was going to say is Darkseid is one of my favorite DC comics villains, and he lends himself well to being a pop figure.
Yeah.
Like Jake was saying, he's a dome.
He's a dome. Well, my favorite thing is because we had some time to kill before the movie because we were going to see a 950 show, and it's pretty much sold out, and it's assigned seating. Even though you don't talk during a movie, you like to sit next to the person you go see a movie with. So we went to the 10:20 showing instead, and there's a Barnes & Noble, so we went by, and Sam, was kind of like convincing himself not to buy it, and then he was like, fuck it, and bought it. And I remember Sam walks up to the lady behind the counter, and he puts it down, and it's such a Sam thing, he puts it down, and he goes, it's the ruler of Apocalypse. And she kind of is like, looking like, okay. Yeah,
okay,
whatever,
you nerd.
whatever you say. But it's just a Sam thing, like, I don't have to tell you, it's the ruler of Apocalypse, here you go. So it's pretty good. And
it's just kind of like,
yeah.
Like this. Like cower in fear.
Yeah, cower in fear of Apocalypse. And he guarded our car very valiantly and scarily. Scarily when we went to go see the movie. So.
Yeah. I will say, so, to kind of piggyback off Darkseid, there's this one DC team that I've always wanted to get into that I haven't found that entry point. And it's the Legion of Superheroes. Mm-hmm. Of the 30th century or 31st century, if it's published after like 2000. And I've never found that entry. Like, they're just so dense and so convoluted in history, I could never get into the Legion of Superheroes. I've certainly read and owned my fair share of books where the Legion of Superheroes show up, but I even have a fucking plastic Legionnaire ring.
Yeah.
But so I went to, when I was at the shop, it was kind of a slow week this week in terms of the amount of books I was picking up, and I saw that they had a trade for the Great Darkness Saga, which is reputed far and wide as the greatest Legion of Superheroes story of all time. And the basic premise is Darkseid, after getting the shit kicked out of him by the heroes of our era, takes like 1,000 years to recover and wakes up in the 30th century to try to take over the universe again, and this time it's Legion of Superheroes that stop him. And so I was like, well, I like Darkseid, and this is the greatest Legion of Superheroes story. I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. I'm about 4 issues in. I mean, once I started to get to the build-up for the actual Great Darkness Saga, because the trade has the issues before it, too, to, I guess, establish how the team's doing before they face Darkseid. It's tough. For me, it's tough to get to this. Like, still. Like, I'm just like, well, Darkseid's here, so that's cool.
Who writes it, and who's the artist on that one?
Paul Levitz is the writer and the main artist for the Great Darkness Saga issues, at least, is Keith Giffen.
Okay. So it still hasn't really won you over yet?
I'm starting to warm up to it.
Okay.
Now that Darkseid showed up.
Yeah.
Fucking Darkseid.
Yeah. Well, I remember that.
Well, I was going to say, who do you think would win in a fight, Darkseid or Thanos?
I remember. I want to say Darkseid, because I like Darkseid. I don't really care about Thanos. But again, I haven't read too much of either of them. But I would just like to see Darkseid just uppercut him into infinity.
He had the best
into
episodes
Infinity
on Justice
Gauntlet?
Yeah. What was that, Sam?
He had the best episodes on Justice League.
He did, yeah. And the shit he does in the Superman animated series is intense,
Mm. Mm-hmm. And the best tease at the end of the Young Justice series.
Oh yeah, at the end of season 2.
Mm. But who would you say would win, Thanos or?
As long as if Thanos doesn't have the Infinity Gauntlet, Darkseid all the way.
Yeah, those are mega beams.
That's how I was feeling.
Yeah, that's the big decider.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, everyone associates Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. I'm pretty sure he only has it in that one story.
Yeah. It's not like walking around with it constantly.
Yeah. I don't think he has it in the second one. And the big bad, I think it's Magus that has it. Or is it Adam Warlock? Either way, he isn't the villain of, like, the later Infinity stories. And when he shows up in the comic book story from a couple years ago, Infinity, it's just regular old Thanos.
Just regular old Thanos, just hanging out.
We should commission someone to do an art piece with Darkseid standing over a beaten Thanos holding or wearing the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, wearing the Infinity Gauntlet.
That sounds pretty cool.
That Darkseid of the Infinity Gauntlet, that'd be epic.
Yeah.
The Flash Gordon theme starts playing for no reason.
Dun, dun, dun,
Well, speaking
dun,
of, just
dun,
real
dun,
quick
dun.
on superhero jewelry, I started reading the. I'm getting somewhere, Chris. Don't worry.
I hope you don't. I hope that's
just leave it at that.
Yeah.
No, I've been reading the Captain Britain saga from the beginning, and the Amulet of Right that he chooses, which turns him into Captain Britain, and he chooses it over the Sword of Might. But it's the early Chris Claremont Captain Britain I bought in this really nice big omnibus, remastered colors and whatnot. And it's one of those books where sometimes you're a little nervous about reading the beginning of a character because sometimes it's like it just totally doesn't age well. But it's just it's so obviously it's British, but it's just so British and fun and like carefree about like what's going on, like, and because he puts the suit on for the first time and he's like not a fighter, which is why he chooses the Amulet of Right over the Sword of Might. And it like the suit helps him kick ass, and he's like, "What the bloody hell am I doing?" It just and all the little like nuances and dialogue and whatnot. And he meets Captain America, and they fight the Red Skull, which is like the coolest thing to see. And they teams up with Spider-Man later on, and I'm excited to get to like the Alan Moore and Alan Davis stuff because I haven't read that before. But it's cool. And I always for some reason this guy must like hate me because whenever I'm on Twitter, I always send a tweet to this comic guy who's British, and he always like kind of steers me towards like British comics and stuff when I talk about Dread or 2000 AD or Rogue Trooper and stuff. He's like, "Oh, check out this, it's like that." And I remember asking him like, recently again, like, did you pick these books up? Because he's an older guy. I was like, did you pick these books up as a kid? Was it a big deal? Did anyone care in the UK? Did anyone give a shit? And he's like, "Oh, I remember being a little kid, like being super psyched to go to a store and loving Captain America as a kid and being able to pick up a book called Captain Britain. Like that was cool, like we had our own version of that." And it was a big deal he's like, it might have been a big deal for the country, but it was a big deal for me, and he's like, I still love seeing the US reprints and picking those up and reading him. And it reminds me of what I love as a kid reading comic books. So it's always kind of cool to see that kind of culture thing and what it means to that era. And I remember he was like, we need a Captain Britain movie. He's like, we need it. And I remember someone wrote an article about, his first roommate when he moves to America is Peter Parker, and someone's saying like that's how you piggyback, like you meet in the next Spider-Man movie, his roommate's Brian Braddock, and you go from there. But
it was an issue of Marvel Team Up.
Yeah, and they were like, Britain's greatest hero. But I remember like he calls himself Captain Britain out of nowhere, in the first issue, and he's like, I don't know, it just felt right. I don't know where that came from. It just felt right though, and I love it.
I like that. That's nice.
Yeah, he's like,
That's
I don't know,
nice
it just came out
origin.
of nowhere. But and then everyone's like, okay, Mr. So-called Captain Britain. If you're gonna be the first Britain's first superhero, I'm gonna be the first super villain. Just super kind of fun stuff like that. And it's just been a lot of British stuff. Like I told Sam after the movie, like Kingsman and reading Captain Britain, like I've always wanted to visit the UK, but like I want to go there so bad and just kind of soak it in for like a couple days and just see all the sights and just be there, because I don't know, I feel like ever since a kid watching like Help and the little like flat that the Beatles share, like I've always just wanted to kind of see that and be around that and stuff. So
yeah,
I don't know,
I watch a lot of British television too. That helps.
Yeah, that's true. So I mean,
I always loved London, but in terms of Captain Britain, the big thing I would recommend would be the Captain Britain and the MI-13.
Oh yes,
which was a series that ran from like 2007 to 2009 or 2000. It only ran for 15 issues if you count the annual, by Paul Cornell and Leonard Kirk. It was really good though.
Yeah, he's a fun character to read because again, it's not where Captain America is very much a creation out of propaganda and World War II and trying to win over people. Captain Britain was like, hey, let's just make a dude who defends Britain, and very magic based early on, and then his suit changes. They get Alan Moore in there, and Alan Moore does what Alan Moore does best and just eviscerates everything about the character and kind of starts fresh when he starts over. And his run is kind of really the acclaimed run that I've heard. along with Alan Davis. So
Oh yeah.
I'm excited to kind of starting from the beginning and kind of just going from there. And I'm a big sucker for like nice hardcover big omnibuses, and it's a beautiful looking book too. A lot of fun stuff. Because the first 2 issues came with, in the back of the book in the first issue, a cutout mask you could have. And then like his cutout wristbands for issue 2. So they have replicas of that in the omnibus, which is kind of cool. So
yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm just about getting home, so
finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucked. But yeah, so you guys got anything before we sign off?
I'm good. I'm glad we were able to kind of do this little experiment, and if we ever have to do it again, and
And now we know that it works if we ever want to do an over the phone interview too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that would probably work better than what we tried last time with Ilya with the Skype, and I didn't really like how that turned out audio wise, at least. But this seems like all right.
Yeah. Well, I'll actually, Sam, I'll let you sign off because I kept stumbling during the opening, so you can go ahead and sign off. Thank you very much.
No. I've got the weird funky voice, so you guys do your usual. It's another installment of Catching Up with Chris Jake and Sam. Go ahead.
This has been another installment of Catching Up with Chris, Jake, and Sam. Again, I am Chris.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Sam.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
Ciao.